Okay, starting. We're live. Hey, everyone. So we have a little two food quick things. Russ has one. I've got one. So go ahead, Russ.
Okay, so apparently Apple has put out a bagel emoji, and I don't know who created it, but whoever created it has never eaten a real bagel, because if you look at it, the way it's sliced, it looks like a white bread bagel. Like, it doesn't even look like it's been fully cooked. And then they made it a plain bagel. Like, I just think that in the world and the lexicon of bagels, if you have a chance to make a bagel emoji, why wouldn't you make it an everything bagel as compared to a plain? Like, it just seems like that was a dumb move too.
It looks like Apple. It looks like a sliced friggin' donut. That's what it looks like.
Oh man, yeah. No.
But how are you going to know it's an everything bagel, Russ? Like, I mean, that's a very.
How are you going to know? You put the bits on it. It's easy. You draw them on.
I'm talking micro pixels here.
But again, a plain bagel. Like, if the world
plain bagel is like a fine line between a plain bagel and a donut, right? Like, they're very similar.
You can't see.
No,
as far as how they
you can't see the poppies and the sesame seeds. I mean, you'll see them when you fail a drug test.
Yeah, I disagree because you're using like a pastry dough for a donut where you're not for a bagel. Now, if you want to say a pretzel and a bagel are close, they are. When I eat a salt bagel, it's very close.
Oh yeah, no. As far as for sure. I don't mean as far as the as far as how they taste. I'm just saying how the emoji would look.
Oh yeah, but see again, why a plain bagel? Like again,
yeah, no, I mean, I'm a cinnamon raisin. I'm a cinnamon raisin guy myself. So
everybody's got a favorite. It's like, put out like 10 different bagel emojis. Don't put out a plain one. That's horrible.
Speaking of food, have you heard of the Big Mike banana?
No.
That's not what she said. No, but anyway, the until 1960, I finally got Mike there. Yep. I've been working on trying to get Mike to laugh all day. Until 1960, the bananas we ate in this country were all different. Now,
you talked about this whole.
I did. So there's more news about it. That's why I'm bringing it up, because I'm a big banana fan. I love bananas.
Genetically altered bananas.
Yes, well, the original bananas were gross Michael bananas, and they kept going in the United States until around 1980. But so we all actually grew up on what's called the gross Michael banana, or the Big Mike banana.
Okay.
And then there was a disease in Panama that basically wiped them out, like almost. So the bananas there's tons of different kinds of bananas in the world. For those who are curious, there's plantains, which aren't really bananas, but there's other bananas that are actually
no two bananas are exactly alike.
No. Some are more curvy, others are more straight. No. So the whole thing is but some are longer, some are shorter. Like the plantains are smaller, and So no, but I do remember, like, as a kid, I loved bananas, and then as an adult, I really don't like them as much. And when I found the story out to be, well, someone sent me a gross Michael banana plant. So you can actually buy these things. Unfortunately, I don't know how they're going to grow on the eastern seaboard here, and it's going to take about 30 years for them to flower, and it's going to grow to 30 feet tall. But I'm planning on one day having a tourist trap that is the original bananas for everybody to eat here.
Well, you still have by the time you try and eat this banana is really the question.
Well, you can convert your hockey rink into a hothouse.
It'd be much better than that. The weather's much more suited for that around here these days. So maybe
just to give people an update on that. So today's my birthday, and I always count it as a good birthday if I could wear shorts, right?
Right.
But it's like 80-something degrees. It may be the warmest that it's ever been on my birthday.
Yeah.
I'm 55 years old. Like, this is the warmest I remember it.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. And happy birthday, by the way. But what is ridiculous about this weather is the fact that youth sports are being totally screwed by it, because
absolutely, yeah.
Like, this is the time of year when football, especially in the Northeast, this is like football takes over, right? But a lot of sports, like my daughter plays soccer, and soccer is fine in this kind of weather. I mean, you don't love it to be 75 degrees when you're playing soccer. It's pretty hot, but football is horrible in 80-degree weather with all the equipment on for these high school students who are dropping like flies from heat exhaustion, and this is just, everything is going to be shifting but the weird thing about it is, I saw a whole story on this, and we'll get to the news. We'll get to the actual show in a second. But the story on this is that you would think, okay, well, maybe it'll be cooler, it'll be warmer in December and January. But actually, what's happening is we're like going to two seasons, like summer and winter. And there's almost, so what's happening is fall. So January is colder than it's usually been. So it's not like, you can suddenly play football in December or January because it's still crazy cold. So we could jump right back to summer after that. So we either have like, just at least where we live, extreme cold or extreme hot. And this weather is horrendous. I mean, it's just.
So Mark Peterson in Regina said he's got 3 inches of snow and it's heading Peter's way. And we have 80 something. It's like 83 degrees right now.
Yeah. I mean, this is the time of year that's usually my favorite weather of the year. And it's just, I can't. I mean, I'm like out, so we're all sweating to death trying to like hold umbrellas over our heads at my daughter's soccer game yesterday. It's just like, that's how hot it is.
Bad, rainy. It was a nice day. Then the rain just came hard.
Yeah. It's terrible. All right, let's move on to the show. It's Christmas, guys. It's the first day of the NHL season. Can't beat it.
Great day.
One of my favorite days of the year. This is the first day of the playoffs.
Finally arrived, and I just sort of said something in our little group chat, but I don't know if you guys saw. Patrick Laine delivered. If this is an indication of the game he's bringing, he absolutely nailed the Vancouver Canucks, because he was asked today about them banning Fortnite on the road, and he said, after last season, that's what did he say? He said, I got to find the quote again. It's
I got it. It says Patrick Laine and Vancouver's decision to ban video games on the road. They need something to blame after last year.
There you go.
Like, just boom.
I love it. I think that's fine.
I think it's tons of fun, and
it's fun, and I think it's fine. I don't think it'll get any kind of hearing or anything like that. I don't think.
No, so. I know. It's just the idea that it was just such a vicious shot.
It's more fun than anything. Yeah. All right, here we go. Ready? All right. Hello, hockey world. It is Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello in the eye of the storm, Toronto.
I'm Peter Tessier, waiting for winter from Saskatchewan to arrive.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Russ is 70 years old today, by the way.
I am set. Sound like it. 55.
55. All right. And I am Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. I'm the youngest person here. This is the Buzz podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. At least I think. Peter, how old are you?
I'm 47.
You're the youngest person here, Peter. Sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. You just look a lot older than me.
Oh, ow.
No, I'm just kidding. I look horrible. You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com, and today we're gonna get into a bunch of things. The first thing I really want to get into, besides the line A trash talk in Vancouver, which is great. I mean, come on, we need more of that. We need players that actually do that kind of thing. And you can tell, when I first met Line A, I met him at the press conference in the or the press gathering for the Stanley Cup. I guess it was in San Jose actually, and they brought out Line and Matthews because so they bring out the prospects who are about to get drafted to the Stanley Cup Finals is what it was. So, so Matthews and Line are there. And to see them side by side and talk to them side by side, it was just fascinating, the difference between their personalities. And you knew that you would get this kind of thing out of Line A eventually. Like he was very funny, very relaxed, very off the cuff. Matthews, of course, was his typical, absolutely like somber self, and just complete, not just very direct,
Matthews
very dry.
Like a heavier load to handle than a guy like Line A. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. There's no question. And Matthews knew it. I mean, Matthews is a smart guy, and he's handled everything incredibly well. And I know he's got a great sense of humor. I've talked to him when he wasn't like that, but back then he was young, and so everything, all the darkness that you see now was amplified because he was nervous about what was going to happen.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough to be glib and funny and sarcastic when you've got like 50 cameras around you, like he did today. It's like Montreal versus Toronto. You've got the Montreal media, the Toronto media here. It's an absolute freaking zoo, and it's entertaining because I love this. I'm a hockey junkie, but it's nuts. And I was in the scrum with Matthews and with Tavares, and I almost got suffocated. So that's how ridiculous it was.
That scene up there. Yeah, I mean, I know that the death has to be insane. I mean, and you know, on Matthew's credit, I mean, when Bruce Garrick's, you know, is in front of you asking you, would you rather play in the U.S. or Canada? You know, that you're in trouble. You know, you're in trouble. So you have to like do your best to get out of the situation. So Matthew's did a good job.
There's some breaking news,
Right.
at least from the chat room's sake. So Corey Schneider is on the IR.
Oh God.
Oh.
So this is still Keith Kincaid's team. This is an amazing thing if you think about it.
It is.
Like, could we have pictured this a year and a half ago?
No, this is a big.
No.
This is not good for my predictions.
No, it's probably not.
But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I like Kincaid played amazing last year, so I guess I still have.
Eddie Lack is the backup. That's they were asking. Looks like Eddie Lack.
All right. Well, I'm going to say my predictions are right because my predictions are still where I want them to be. We'll talk about predictions tomorrow. I think that,
They're lacking a backup.
They're lacking a backup. Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of backups around as we've seen before, right? So they should be fine. All right. So I just watched. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch it all, but I did want to make a comment quickly about the game over in Cologne, Germany. I watched this game this morning while I was getting ready. I know you couldn't, Mike, because you were driving around. But Cologne and the Oilers, you know, it was really a cool game. I mean, it was a really cool story. Just the idea that, you know, you have Draisaitl playing in the town he was born against a team that is being coached by his dad. It's just a cool thing. You know, you can't get around. I mean, I think that, and the fans there were crazy loud. It went to overtime. I mean, and, you know, and the team played, I mean, they played the Oilers, who are 7-1 in the preseason. They played them really well. And this was the Oilers team, basically. I mean, I think Adam Larson wasn't playing, but beyond that, everybody else was in. So
it would have been something if the Oilers had put forth a stinker in Cologne.
How did they use Evan Bouchard?
They use him quite a bit. And you know, and so then, and in between periods, John Shannon came on, and they all talked about Bouchard, who is, if you don't know out there, is, you know, and even if you do know, was the first round pick for the Edmonton Oilers this year. As he's a young kid, you know, he's like 10th overall, right? So he's big though. He's a big defenseman.
Size, yeah, he's strong, and he worked on his skating a lot over the summer. Like, how did he look?
He looked very good. I have to say. And Shannon pointed out a couple. They did sort of like a Don Cherry-esque type thing of focusing on him. And John Shannon's really good at that. So he was focusing on some of the little things he was doing that you wouldn't expect an 8-year-old to be able to know to do. Just some of his instincts are just so sound, picking up for other guys when they would carry the puck up a little bit, you know, making a check, but then staying with the player as he got back into the play. So there wasn't little stuff like that you really. The Shannon's like, I think that, you know, even if Larson wasn't a little bit hurt, which he is now, they thought that this kid Bouchard would get a chance anyway, you know, for maybe the 9 games or whatever, you know, with the team. But John Shannon's like, I think he's going to be a leader on this team sooner than later. He just has that presence about him. So I was really,
I just have to say, though, I mean, I've heard he had a really good training camp, but you really have to be careful, especially if you're the Edmonton Oilers and you have a history of throwing these kids to the wolves in terms of playing a kid at 18 years old. You know, you don't have to do this. You really don't. I mean, if he's ready and if he's prepared, fine, but you don't have to do it. Now, like, for example, I was at the morning skate today here in Toronto, and Jesperi Kotkaniemi is going to make his first NHL start, and he was like, you know, trying to be very glib and take the pressure off of him, saying, you know, it's just another game. But you know, this kid, this 18-year-old, is the first player in professional sports, NHL, Major League Baseball, basketball, football, who was born in the 21st century, who is going to be playing in a regular season NHL game. So, yeah,
that is amazing. I'll say this: I was just on Sirius. And I said, for all the new coaches in the league, a lot of them are falling back on veterans. So with these guys that you're naming, they're not.
Yeah.
So I can't play both sides of the fence. I'm happy for the guys, but I do think we all should still note, and even with Hextall, who doesn't ever want to send anybody back once he starts them, nothing's a guarantee that any of them stay.
Yeah, there's not a guarantee.
Especially like a Bouchard who's playing overseas. Like, we got to remember, we go back to the Kings. When the Kings played in England,
yeah,
you know, they played some rookies then too.
And this overseas thing, you know, is such a hot topic too, because, you know, for the Oilers, this is kind of like the last thing they needed. I think, to go overseas, because this is the team that really would like to have like
not according to Leon Draisaitl. He's loving it.
No, I mean, trust me. When I say that I love this game, I love this game. I mean, I loved watching it. I love the fans. I love the hoopla around it. I love the way this team played. I love watching Jason Akeson score for the German team. It was a flyer for like 14
That's great. Jason Akeson scoring is fantastic, because there's got to be like 2 people on Twitter now, on Flyers Twitter, that are saying "I told you so," even though we haven't heard his name for like 2 years.
I know. He played 14 games for the Flyers.
It was the most contentious 14 games ever.
Because he's he was an enigma type player. Like, he has obvious skills. He's
Right.
going to play out there. He was a friend of Claude Giroux's, which I think got him the 14 games a little bit to a degree. But his work ethic was horrible already, and just off the ice and stuff like that.
Like, Twitter broke. It was like, you can't sit him. Why are you sitting him?
I know. So he scored today. It was pretty funny to watch. Yeah. So he got that done. Other news today. What do you guys have? I've been working on my previews. So
Jack Eichel named Buffalo Sabres captain.
Yes.
Which is it's not the biggest surprise in the world. I mean, he's the centerpiece of that franchise. He's established now. I mean, I'm not shocked, Russ. I mean,
they waited until the right time, though. They waited, for Kane to be gone and settled, and for O'Reilly to be gone and settled. Like, if O'Reilly was still there, would he have bristled at Jack Eichel being captain? He may have. And so I think everything's been handled right, and I think Eichel's handled it right. I think here's the thing, and this is where I think things are very misunderstood for Jack Eichel. For some reason, people think he had a bad year last year. He didn't. Go look at his year. It wasn't bad at all. It was a very good year. He also has been a leader this entire time. If you talk to Jack Eichel, or you talk to teammates of Jack Eichel, he talks about winning. He doesn't want to know about the other BS. He just wants to win. I can go back to, baseball when I was a kid, like Tom Seaver, and you go back and look at quotes from when he was a rookie and a second-year player, and he was telling veterans, listen, if you're here to have fun, go somewhere else. We're here to win. We want to enjoy it, but we want to win. And basically, and what he was talking about, and the Sabres are going through the same thing. When the Mets had Casey Stengel and they first started in baseball, they were kind of a joke of a team. And so, things were kind of light around the team. Then this guy came in, and he was like, no, things are changing. And I think that's what this signifies for Jack Eichel and the Sabres. I'm not going to say they were a joke, but we also know that things were in turmoil and things were just not on the right track.
Correct.
Russ, what you're saying is completely supported by moves managers in many sports have made to change the culture within the dressing room. We've heard it in hockey 100 times. They've had to move guys out who didn't want to get on the program, and they've had to bring guys in who could get them on the program. This is a major thing that is supposed to and has shaped the direction of teams. And if it's done right, it becomes a watershed moment.
Jack Eichel is such an interesting character too. He is definitely going to become one of the more colorful personalities in NHL. I think he hasn't yet because of all the kind of weird circumstances that have happened there. But in time, I have no doubt that he's going to be one of them.
He's going to have an Yzerman kind of attitude. He's not going to be colorful, but he's going to talk a lot.
I think he's a lot funnier than Yzerman.
He is, but I don't think he's going to get the chance to really do that. I don't.
I think the one thing that we have to look out for in terms of Eichel, for a player to be an effective captain, one of the things that he has to be is on the ice. And Eichel has had some injury problems, and he's been out for long stretches.
Right.
They need him to be a force, and they need him to be a consistent force off and on the ice at all times.
And he has that hockey player mentality, Mike, to that degree that if he's not playing well, he's not going to be a leader. Like he's that, there are a lot of hockey players have, it's kind of partially endearing quality. I think that a lot of people, like about hockey players, that they're not going to sit up and talk about how great everybody needs to play if they're not playing great themselves. And that's it's definitely a North American thing, I think, with some of the better players. But my favorite memory ever, like I've shared before, but just really quickly, was being stuck on the bus. The same kind of thing, like Eichel and McDavid were introduced to us in Chicago during the Stanley Cup final. And the Chicago bus is legendary. From getting from the arena to the hotel is like a 3-hour trip. You might as well walk, because there's so much traffic through Chicago, through the city. So I was on the bus, the media bus, going back with the prospects. So sitting directly behind me was McDavid and Eichel, and all the other prospects were around them too. But McDavid and Eichel were shit. And remember, this was like who was going to go first. It was not a really big. Everyone knew it was going to be McDavid, but there was still a 1-2 punch there. And Eichel the entire trip just ripped McDavid a new one in the funniest ways possible. Like, just completely. It was the greatest like insight into like 18-year-old kids, because we had that we had what they do on the NHL bus for the media is they'll play like the NHL Tonight on the TV there in the bus, and when you're watching it, when you're stuck, it's like a 30-minute loop. But when you're stuck in traffic, you'll see this thing like 4 times. Then they'll just keep playing it, right? So it became a joke the second time around that Eichel would be like, when they were showing a highlight, Eichel would go to McDavid, "You would have made that play, right?" He would like, and they would go like, "Yep, that you would have scored on that goal, right? You wouldn't have scored on that goal though, Connor. There's no way you would have scored on that." And McDavid is like dead serious and like not really reacting to it, but like laughing, and everybody else is around him is like laughing because McDavid was way more, intense. But Eichel just was, he was ripping him. It was great. I mean, it was just one of these things that's why I think Eichel has like this like really good.
Oh, maybe. I have these 2 small pieces of breaking news, Ek. The first one is Gritty is the first mascot to get a rookie card in the history of the hockey card market.
God,
so he will get a Young Guns rookie, and some place called Urban Saloon now has a sandwich called the Gritty. Now listen to this sandwich. This is pretty gross. It's a crispy Cheeto crusted chicken breast, melted cheddar cheese, cheddar ranch on a toasted brioche roll topped with flaming hot Cheetos and choice of tots, fries, or salad. Those flaming hot Cheetos are not made for humans. I tried them. You can't eat them.
The whole thing was fine until you added the Cheetos. Like that's when it just got like, keep the Cheetos, stay in your lane. Cheetos are not meant for sandwiches, even if you're trying to be goofy like Gritty. That's just taking a great creation of Gritty and sort of watering down the effect that he has because you threw some flaming hot Cheetos on it.
This sandwich and Gritty have the similar effect. They both make me want to puke.
Yeah, Gritty showed up on the John Oliver show on HBO too. He's been
Yes, he did.
Oh my gosh!
It's the eyes, man.
Gritty. I believe that was a fake Gritty that they made.
I don't know
It's the
about
eyes.
that. I don't think it was.
Watch it again. That's not Gritty. That actually is because the eyes are. I mean, being a person who makes puppets with my son who loves to make puppets.
Yeah.
The eyes are different. The hair is different. That's not a real Gritty. That's they made themselves their own Gritty.
Well, tweet it to John Oliver's show and see what they say.
Yeah.
Well, just a couple little snippets here. They're related to the game tonight, but more about the league in general in terms of a couple of veteran players. First of all, Thomas Buchanan's, who, as we all know, was traded from the Canadiens to the Leafs last year at the deadline for a second-round pick and a couple marginal prospects. He re-signed with the Canadiens, and the Canadiens are going through a youth movement. And if you don't think so, they're healthy scratching Thomas Buchanan's tonight, which just makes that trade look even more ill-advised because he didn't play well for the Leafs, and now he's a 35-year-old guy who's not even starting for the season opener. The other one is Carl Alzner, who I think was 3rd or 4th in the NHL in terms of consecutive games played, and he's not hurt. He was out there for the morning skate, and he is not playing. And Claude Julien was sort of matter of fact about it. It's like, basically, hey, he has to deal with it, but it's, this is a guy who's played over 600 consecutive games, and now that that contract looks pretty bad for the Montreal Canadiens in retrospect. Now I think this is the 3rd year of that deal, and their defense without Shea Weber is in deep trouble. And Alzner was on the bottom pairing on the morning skate until they moved him out, and now he's the extra defenseman. So a couple things I think are notable.
That is very interesting.
Interesting.
All right. So I Sorry, I just found out. I was just going to text about someone trying to prove to me that this was not the real Gritty. So we're not going to get into it.
Oh God.
No, it's a whole controversy that needs further.
All right, one second, then, Russ. You're ready?
Gives a crap.
Okay, no, hold on.
This is Gritty on John Oliver.
Right.
All right. That's Gritty on John Oliver. So okay, so got that one. Now I'll show you the actual Gritty, right? So there's this. I can't put them side by side very well, but I'm going to try this one. So this is the actual Gritty here.
Oh, the eyes are different.
You know what I mean?
And eyes are different. And he didn't have a Flyers jersey on.
He didn't have a Flyers jersey on, but that's like okay because they had him just as a judge. But
right,
yeah, I'm thinking that this is different.
Oh, I can't believe they went to the trouble to make a Gritty costume. It just shows the budget that show has.
John Oliver has crazy budget. The things they make on that show are crazy. So yeah, this is definitely the case.
Yeah,
all right, let's move on now.
They went to AmVets and picked up a bunch of junk and they made Gritty out of that.
Gritty's not. Yeah, Gritty by the way is not that hard to make a fake Gritty at all. Like that's this is a basic puppet. So
yeah, Eck knows too much about puppets, so we'll just leave it there.
I do know way too much about puppets. I'm surrounded by them all the time because my son is a puppeteer. All right. So let's move on to the Vegas Golden Knights. We've got 3 teams to finish here before we get into the regular season, and we're going to do a preview show tomorrow. Kevin Allen's going to be on it as well. So I know we're doing our preview show a little bit late. My previews will all be in by the end of the day today, but I just want to have to we want to finish out these team previews. And, I don't think anything that happens tonight is going to change any of our predictions based on okay. So I think we're okay. But, we all have ours hermetically sealed in different places anyway. So the Vegas Golden
in Funk and Wagnall's basement. And we're gonna do over-unders on Friday as well. And since, one game has been played, I don't think that's going to clue us into.
I think anything will affect them. I don't think anything will affect it at all. So I'm telling the guys on here to try not to read my blog so they can be surprised by my predictions. And I won't be changing any predictions. I don't think. Although, like I said, the Schneider thing is a little bit concerning, but we'll see.
Oh no, it's more of he's overseas. They're not going to play him there. Their opener's on the 11th, so it gives them a lot more time.
Right there, you go. All right, so the Vegas Golden Knights. Ready for some interesting facts on them? Okay, they obviously beyond just the incredibleness of an expansion team going to the Stanley Cup Finals and putting up 109 points and winning their division and making everybody in Canada think life is not fair. They beyond that, their goals per game, they were 4th in the NHL, 8th in goals against per game. It's a little higher than I thought because Fleury was so dominant. But remember, there was and the goalies were so dominant. Remember, there was this stretch where Fleury was hurt at the beginning of the year.
There was a different goalie every night for
and it's amazing that they kept that. Their power play and penalty kills were both 10th in the league, so at least they have consistency there. They weren't good on faceoffs, believe it or not. They were 22nd in the league on faceoffs. But the craziest number for them is that of their and now that I say this crazy, of their 20-man roster that they're going into the year with, that's officially there because this all is on NHL.com today. Where do they rank in terms of young to old?
I'm going to say they were in the middle.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. Middle, like 15, 16.
Yeah.
What do you think, Peter?
Sorry, say that again.
Of the 20-man official roster going into tomorrow's opener, right, for them.
Yeah.
Where do they rank in terms of old? If they're old to young, if they were the youngest team overall, they would be first. If they're the oldest, they'd be 31st. That kind of
thing. Kind of middle-ish.
Yeah, middle. Yeah, that's what Russ said. Mike,
middle-ish, like maybe sort of like 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say middle-ish.
They are the 30th oldest team in the NHL. There's only one team older than them.
That's crazy.
Isn't that great? And for an expansion team, and we all think of them as they're the great young, fast Vegas Knights, right? Full of young talent and old and fast. They are.
If you think about it, though, it's like none of their draft picks, unless Cody Glass makes it. So you don't have an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old balancing out all your 25-year-olds.
Well, you got Fleury, Stasny, and Pacioretty who are bringing it way up.
Yeah, they're all bringing it up too, right? And so, yeah, I mean, they probably weren't the 30th oldest last year, but they weren't that much. I mean, Nate Schmidt's not young either. He's not even included here. So he's 27. He's 27 years old. The youngest player on this team is who? In the 20-man roster. it's starting. So
Brandstrom didn't make it, right? And neither did Glass.
Right, neither of those guys.
I'd say Alex Tuck.
Yeah, Tuck played college though, so I don't think it's Tuck.
Paula?
Tuck would be the youngest, but he's actually not on the 20-man roster because he's on.
So he's on the IR right now.
He would be. He's 22 and 22.4, but he is the youngest actually. So
then I think it's Peter's guess, Holla.
Or Malcolm Subban.
Malcolm Subban is 24 and a half. Nope. Almost 20. Malcolm Subban is almost 25 years old. No. What do you think, Peter? Any guess?
Holla.
Eric Holla, he said.
Let's see. Derek Holla. He is not. Is he not? He's not on the 20-man roster here, actually.
Whoa.
He's on the second line. What are you talking
he is. I'm sorry. Eric Holla. I'm sorry. I missed what you said. Eric Holla is 27. Nope.
Really?
Yep. The youngest player on this team on the forward group is William Carrier at 23.8, so almost 24. And defense would be Shea Theodore at 23.2. Right. So this is an old team. I mean, it's really strange. And yet, they play faster. They're so quick. They've got all the speed. I mean, what's crazy about this stuff? That when you think about like Marchessault is 28 years old. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Carlson is 26. Of course, Pacioretty is only a year older than Marchessault. Stastny is, because he's 29. Stastny's 33 practically.
Yeah, but I think Pacioretty is aging in dog years, though. I don't think it's fair.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's say almost 30, so we'll say he's 2 years older. But yeah, I mean, and their defense, is I mean, Derek Engelland is 37, right? So he's like practically, and then their goalies are both, Malcolm and Fleury's 34. So
yeah, well, I mean, this is. I mean, everyone's to ask the question. Vegas can come anywhere close to. I think the answer to that is no, because it was sort of a Cinderella story. But you do look at what left and what came in. With Neal leaving, with Perron leaving, and now they bring in Stastny and Pacioretty. That the absence of Nate Schmidt for 20 games is going to hurt them starting off, and Fleury's got to stay healthy. But I think they're a playoff team. I think they're strong enough, and if they stick with the endless hustle that they showed last year with Gerard Gallant as the head coach, I think that they'll make the playoffs. But if they
I agree with you, Mike. I like their top three defensemen, right? But then we have Derek Engelland, who, for all accounts, was supposed to be the community relations director this year, but instead he's playing. He's 36 and a half. At some point, I think the wheels are going to come off on that. Yeah. Then you've got like Brad Hutt and Nick Holden as the bottom pairing. Like, those are three that in the West, this is a weak defense.
Yeah.
For the West.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, I even think that, I even think that, besides Theodore, I mean, obviously when you have, they're missing, they are missing, what's his name? Schmidt. They're missing Schmidt, of course, but beyond, the best players they have on defense, and they're not, ones out there.
I mean, Peter, Colin Miller was a bottom pairing defenseman with the Bruins, and he had a really good year last year, and not taking anything away from him, but that's what I'm saying. And Russ is right. It's like Theodore, I think, is, I mean, in Anaheim, he was a promising prospect, and last year, even though he's got a few faults with his game, I think he's a legitimate, 2 or 3. But Schmidt is very important to that defense in terms of pushing the play. He's very, very quick. Yeah. He's offensively gifted, and without him, and Brandstrom didn't make the team as a 19-year-old, which is probably a good thing in terms of development, but defense is a key, and I don't know whether their defense is good enough to get them any further than making the playoffs and maybe a round.
If you're looking, if you're one of the people who believe in the overachievement of the Vegas Golden Knights, and you're looking for them to come back to earth or regress back, it's probably going to happen on defense. So that's where I think, this point comes into play, is that are they going to be as diverse and strong on defense as they were last year? And I think, no, I think this is kind of, other than Theodore, it's kind of a no-name defense.
Yeah.
They don't have Sabiza either.
No, I mean, Colin Miller's, I think, known enough now, but you're right, it is. And
And who the last no-name defense that did anything spectacular was the 72 Miami Dolphins, right? Like
but they play their defense comes from the fact that they're always attacking. That's their team.
All right, so let's get to that. Are they going to be able to pull that off again this year? I'm going to say not to the same degree.
Right, because
how much did Washington give a template to play against them? I mean,
a lot.
I think a lot too.
Yeah, but the problem is that not everybody can repeat what Washington has.
That's correct.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, Washington has had an awe-inspiring power play with Kuznetsov and Ovechkin and Backstrom, and they were able to muscle up with guys like Smith Pelly and Tom Wilson, who were waiting for the suspension on that gentleman. But yeah,
they're going to be as pissed off this year. Let's be real.
Right. They wanted to prove. Yeah. They wanted to prove to the world.
There's a ton of pressure on them now. There really is. I mean, they go from having no pressure and being able to just surprise everybody to the opposite right now. Yep. Now there's now a lot of teams that were embarrassed by them are going to be pissed off, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really going to be tough. And Marcia showed you saw that Wilson and I think Doughty had this idea in the first round, but they couldn't score. But that if you hit Marcia, so if you hit Carlson, they do not play at the same tempo, so that's
and I think they are slower than they were last year with Pacioretty and with Stastny. Not to say that they're slow players, but speed was one of the main reasons why they went as far as they did. And Pacioretty has never been known as a speedster. And Peter, Stastny. I mean, I don't think he's a speed demon. He's a very effective center, but he's not going to blow you away.
Stastny's not going to. You're not going to lose to him in a track meet right now, but he makes up for it in other ways. But again, he's right at that dangerous age curve area too, and you sort of have to wonder, are these two guys, are they going to run at you in the same capacity they did last year? Because there were times with the big goals nights where I was wondering, like they need to all P test after the game because it was insane what they were doing.
Yeah.
And Stastny and Pacioretty, if they find a way to get up to speed, it's going to be interesting too. Here's another little known thing about Las Vegas. Las Vegas is 3,000 feet above sea level. You've got a little bit of an altitude effect like you have in Calgary and Denver. Okay. It's something to consider too. And then you sort of factor in the dry heat and everything. There's maybe a little advantage that they have due to that. That's part and parcel of where the altitude.
No, I think that does play into it. I really do, and I also think the distraction of Vegas last year played into it. Now I think if I'm them, I'm not playing Pacioretty and Stastny together, and right now they are, at least according to roster resource. I'm not putting those guys together because I do agree that this team works at its best when it's a first line and 3 third lines. That's how I see it. Or 3 second/third lines. Like they have to get everybody going. And if they start going to Pacioretty and Stastny because wow, they're Pacioretty and Stastny and they're famous, then they've got problems because that's not the way this team works.
Well, they also need William Karlsson too. I mean, he scored 43 last year after scoring the 6th the year before. I think it's unrealistic to expect him to score 43 again, but if he scores 25 to 30, then I think that's an acceptable drop-off after a phenomenal year. But if he goes back to scoring, in the teens, then they're in trouble because that's a lot of goals.
Yeah. This is also the first team we've talked about that doesn't have anyone on their entry-level contract that's playing for them.
It is. This is a weird team now.
And, of course, no homegrown players are on their lineup.
Right. And and again, this is something that no way we could have predicted 2 years ago that it would all turn out like there's no way.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, so here's an interesting thing. I have a question.
They're a now team, and then in a couple of years they'll have future there too. They'll be moving in, right? It's weird.
Of their 20 players, how many were picked up directly from the expansion draft? Which is kind of fascinating, because remember, this is an expansion team. So
I'm going to go 16.
16 of their 20.
12.
Well,
I think I'm looking right now, 8 tops.
Yeah, it's 10. Okay. Now that would be Marchessault.
You got it wrong. I love that.
Marchessault, Haula, Nozick, Lindbergh, Carrier, Bellemare, McNabb, Miller, Engelin, and Fleury. Okay, those are the 10. Now, some were picked up in trades.
And a pair of trade.
Right. And some were picked up in trades, right, at the draft that, they came to them. Like Carlson's a perfect example of that, right? But, he was a trade from Columbus. Riley Smith was a trade from Florida. But it's interesting to me like that, that they really have managed to do this. And Ryan Reeves has made the roster too. There were some questions about that too. I mean, he did sign a big contract, and I think they need Ryan Reeves on this team. I think they underappreciated him last year a lot. I still do think that.
They need him?
I think they need him.
All right.
I think no, they do. I mean, especially if teams are going to try to physical them, because beyond him,
well, he wasn't underappreciated in the playoffs because he was the only thing that kept Tom Wilson in check at all.
He was scratched in a couple games in the playoffs.
When he was in the lineup. I mean, when he wasn't in the lineup, then Tom Wilson could run amok.
Completely. So that's Vegas. I mean, they really are going to be one of the more, fascinating stories this year, as they were last year. Watching them in preseason, like I watched the last game they played against the Sharks, which was pretty much the Sharks, and that they basically both had their top lineups out there. You got Carlson, and Burns on the one side, and the Knights took them apart. They took apart the Sharks in this game, and it was like, these are like, I mean, I know it's preseason, but they were the regular lineups. So it wasn't like the Knights had lost anything, and Pacioretty looks phenomenal on this team. Like, he really does look.
He's going to have a good year. I mean,
like he's reborn, like this. I mean, the pressure, the difference between what Pacioretty went through in Montreal and this is just night and day, So, all right, let's move on to the other Stanley Cup finalists, because before we get on to the Winnipeg Jets, which is their final team, but because the Washington Capitals, I guess being late in the alphabet was a good thing for teams last year, because these last three teams. Three best teams in hockey, right? Vegas, Washington, and Winnipeg.
Yeah, Tampa.
Yeah, right. Washington. Goals per game. Where do you think they sat? I'll say
Caius is eighth.
Eight. Okay, Caius is pretty close. Ninth. They were ninth in goals per game, and they were 15th in goals against per game. Those are not Stanley Cup numbers. They did not remember have a Stanley Cup-esque season. I mean, even though they did finish first in the division, but they were really inconsistent throughout the year. And but they did finish with 105 points. So I guess it's hard and fair maybe to say that they didn't have a Stanley Cup.
They were Stanley Cup contenders because Marc-Andre Fleury stood on his head.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the period.
Now we're talking about the Caps now. So
Capitals. Sorry. I thought you were still in there. The sirens threw me off.
Yeah, that's fine. No, but the Caps, they were. I mean, they did get a lot.
Well, Braden Holtby stood on his head.
Actually, Grubauer stood on his head in the regular season, and without Grubauer, remember Grubauer starts the playoffs for them because he had such a great regular season.
Well, they got a lot of guys, right? They got it from Wilson and Verana, and they were winning some games for them. And it was big. I mean, they were fast. They were physical. They had good goaltending. This is all on Mike because the siren started all this.
That's all right. No, it's kind of crazy. I mean, when you think about it, they really they're this is a team that only lost two players. They really only lost Grubauer, but that's a big player we'll talk about in a second. And they lost Beagle. They picked up Nick Dowd to basically replace Beagle. Was basically a trade between Vancouver and Washington, even though they didn't play it out that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's a down play for them. I'd rather have Beagle than Nick Dowd. Brooks Orpik is left and came back in the biggest sham of the offseason. But
yeah, well, they added Dmitry Yaskin off of waivers. Their defense is pretty much the same. The thing is, it's like there's no safety net now in goal until Samsonov is ready. Samsonov is playing in the AHL this year, and their backup is Phoenix Copley. And I know he's been around in terms of, I think he's in his mid-20s, Russ. He's 23, 24. Yeah, he's a decent goaltender, but I mean, there's just like, Garrett Sparks in Toronto and a few other goaltenders out there. They've never really proved at the NHL level. So until you know what they can do. It's a question mark. But I mean, I think that they're pretty much everything is in place, and some people think that the only difference here is there was so much of a hunger by that team, and especially Alex Ovechkin, and I think he doused that hunger with plenty of vodka and champagne over the summer. But whether the hunger is there this year for them to be one of those repeat teams like Pittsburgh, or whether their desire is satiated by winning a cup last year, and that we won't know that until the middle of the season. But the talent is there. It's just a question of everything falls right like it did last season.
Well, I mean, so Smith Pelly is going to be a question, right? What he's going to look like when the season starts, because they do need him. That's a big deal. The bottom six, like if you're going to look at them and say and pick on them for something, then it's the bottom six that you're going to pick on them for. But I think third line, they're still good with Burakovsky and Eller and whoever else they put there, whether it's Stevenson or whoever. That's still really good. So the fourth line's the only really.
Yeah, I mean they're going to be very good, and I tend to think that getting the monkey off their back will help them. I do think that though there is a question, how much does a coach matter to a team like this, right? So obviously you've got we have Barry Trotz gone, Todd Reirden in. That was everybody knew that was going to happen all year last year, right. And Barry Trotz just kept winning, and it didn't matter.
Very little, because not much is going to change.
I don't think much is going to change because Reirden already ran, I think, the offense the way they did it. So it was kind of a wash to a degree. The most interesting stat I could find out about these guys, and it's tough because, I mean, there are some fascinating statistics. They are not young. They're 22. They're 22nd as far as age goes. But the most interesting stat is this is probably, and I can't prove this, but I can't imagine this isn't true, the team that has won the Stanley Cup with the least amount of Canadians on it. Because when I was going through this, there are 5 Canadians on this roster. Now, was Beagle Canadian?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But if he was,
I tend to think he is, but I'm not 100%.
If he was, then that's 6 that they won with, because that would be the only change. But because Nick Dowd is American. But yeah, so 5 Canadians. That's as opposed to, by the way, Vegas, which we didn't get to. 14 of their 20 are Canadians. Yeah, that I don't think that means anything. I'm always personally having grown up here, and I'm always fascinated about where players are coming from that are making it to the NHL, because I think it's interesting how Russia has fallen off a lot. This team has 3 Russians on it though. This is like this, which I don't think any team has had 3 Russians on it yet. I think this is the first one. But what's interesting about Russian players, and in doing this whole thing, I've kind of realized that the Russian players that are in the NHL are all really good. And you don't have any of the middle of the road Russian players in the NHL, which is probably because the KHL exists, right?
Yeah. I do want to bring up a comparison, because I saw that there were some articles written about when Colin Campbell took over for Mike Keenan. I think that was completely different, because Reirden's been with this team for so long that I think that's why it doesn't matter. When Colin Campbell took over for Keenan, Colin Campbell basically had to be second fiddle to Mark Messier, and that's a pretty big deal. Reirden doesn't have to be that to Ovechkin, because he's always been there, and Ovechkin's already been listening to him for all this time. So that's the difference, I think.
However, I will throw this out there too, and we talked about this a lot, the difference between the dynamic of being an assistant coach versus a head coach, right? Because Reirden was probably Ovechkin's friend in a lot of battles versus Trotz. Because Trotz definitely rode Ovechkin a lot in different situations. I mean, they got closer as time went on, but early on, that was a big battle, right? So, the question is, can you go from being a friend to not being a friend? For like Reirden with Ovechkin, you got to make sure that, they work on that. Before we get to Winnipeg, last quick thing, because we are going to have time. I don't want to make sure we get to Winnipeg, but plenty of time. The other interesting stat I found out about these guys, 2 things. One, 11 homegrown players, 12 homegrown players of their 20, which is a lot for a team of this age, like a team that's this old. That's quite a bit. And then, Russ, I always like to ask you this question. You know what question I'm going to ask you. How many first-round draft picks are on the front 20-man roster?
The problem is we don't know what they consider their 20-man roster.
Well,
I'm going to go 6.
All right. How about this? This is crazy.
I'm gonna go 9.
What do you think, Peter?
11.
13.
Wow.
Whoa.
13 first-round draft picks, including their entire first, second, and 2/3 of their third line. According to this. That is something I haven't seen yet. Like that's
crazy.
I've never seen a team that almost puts their top 3 lines as third-round draft picks. The only as first-round draft picks.
Lars Eller shouldn't have been, and you can make the argument that you don't think of some of them as.
Yeah, you don't think of them. And Brett Connolly, I don't necessarily think of as a first-round draft pick either, but he was, and yeah. So I mean that is a crazy thing, I think. So that is it for that team. We're going to move on to Winnipeg. And
that's it for the defending Stanley Cup champs. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we'll talk in their predictions about what we think is going to happen to them, but we want to get on to the Winnipeg Jets and our final team alphabetically of our 31 team preview. So as the Winnipeg Jets notes come up for me, here they are. All right, good. Winnipeg Jets. I picked them to finish second place last year. That's where they finished. Just want to throw that out there. That's all I'll say about that. Goals per game, second in the NHL, 3.38. That's crazy. Goals against per game, fifth. This may be the best goals per game, goals against per game of any team in the league. I think I've got to check that out, but I think those are the 2 highest of that. They're crazy, and on top of all of that, where does their 20-man roster rank, Peter, from 1 to 31?
In terms of age?
Yeah.
Oh, they got to be like 6th youngest.
How about third?
Now, third was, if you would have asked me, third was on my list.
Third. Okay. 114 points, second goals per game, fifth goals against per game, the third youngest roster in the NHL. That is crazy. And really does show a lot about what they've done there. Like this is a team that's waited and almost too long. Like everybody was like, they got to get it together this year, right?
Well, here's the thing. So this is the real important thing, Ek. So, NHL 19 picked the Leafs to win the Cup, and TSN Hockey has picked the Jets to win the Cup.
Yeah, the Jets were the popular pick among like Sportsnet people and stuff like that when I was looking at it.
Well, and let me just touch on that because this is I understand the hype in Toronto because of Tavares, but if you look at the construction of the 2 teams and you look at the balance, I mean, the Winnipeg Jets defense blows away the Maple Leafs defense.
Yeah.
I think the forward groups are comparable. I think the goaltending is comparable, but I think that their defense with Trouba and Bufflin and Morrissey and Myers as a top 4 blows away the Toronto defense. So when it comes and I know that the West is tougher. So it's going to be a tougher road to hoe for Winnipeg to get out of the Central and into the Stanley Cup final. But I think they're a better team than the Leafs are. So that's why I think some of those Sportsnet personalities and TSN personalities were saying that the Jets are probably the best team in Canada. They're probably right.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like the best chance for a Canadian Stanley Cup that we've had in a long time between the 2 of them, between like Toronto and Winnipeg to me.
So it does, and TSN had them ranked 2nd overall for their preseason predictions. And I ran a poll yesterday on Twitter, sort of challenging that, and a lot. So there were, a lot of respondents said, I put like 2nd, 4th, and 5th. I think I can't remember what the poll was, and then I said other, and a lot of people chose other, and then gave me sort of some different sort of predictions on that. And a lot of people were saying like 6th, 7th in the West. And I think one of the things that Jets fans are having a lot of trouble thinking about here is they've actually lost a lot of players. They've lost Enstrom. They've lost Mason. They've lost Armia. They've lost Hendricks. They've lost Matthias. Now, Matthias didn't play a lot. Hendricks played more than people want to realize, and he was trusted in certain roles at that. Particularly on the PK, and whether you like it or not, he was played there. And while Mason had some challenges with his health due to concussions and stuff, he did play. And they also lost Hutchinson, who came in and played. And, you lose that many guys, and you've got to fill them somehow. So what are you filling them with? Well, you're going to start Vesalainen, and you're going to have Dano and Nick Patan is still up in the air as to what's happening with him. I believe he gets a conditioning stint due to the stuff with his father. And that is sort of, you don't have the depth to draw on in the same way. So the Jets are a bit of a wild card that way. And I think there's a belief that they're going to charge up. And I'm writing about this right now as sort of my preseason thing before the game opens. They're opening a game tomorrow. But, I'm not so bullish on them. I'm cautiously optimistic, but to think that they're going to do what they did last year and come within basically a loss to Nashville to not have the President's Trophy is very optimistic thinking.
Peter, it's weird because you're as I guess realistic or down to earth when it comes to the Jets as I am with the Leafs. I mean, I guess from watching a team all the time, and you see their flaws. And I look at them and I see a powerhouse offensive defense that's pretty deep and pretty good, and a goaltender who a lot of people think is a Vezina candidate. And with Toronto, I see a team. The offense is phenomenal, but they're missing a cog in Nylander, and their defense. I think maybe 2 of the 6 defensemen on the Leafs could play on the Winnipeg Jets defense, and then you've got guys who are inexperienced or unknown commodities. So that's where. I think we're both looking at these teams realistically, but maybe you hold Toronto in a higher regard, like I hold Winnipeg in a higher regard.
I think I have them as second in the Central. I haven't hid that. I think that they still will struggle to get to the Cup. I think it's nice to look at them and say they look like a perfect team, but we know how this season goes. Like, it just anything. What a team resembles at the beginning of the season is never what they resemble at the end of the season. Stuff will happen to all teams.
To that point, I think the Jets need to make a move for depth by the trade deadline. I think the Leafs will do the exact same thing. I think the Leafs will, and you know what? And I've been saying this, whether it's right or wrong. The perfect idea for the Jets is to somehow find a way to get a guy like Matt Duchene in, a creative center who can play down low and distribute the puck and has a bit of vision. And in the process of doing that, they should be doing it like tomorrow, is get rid of Tyler Myers, because his cap hit his actual salary is so low compared to his cap hit. And it helps Melnick with his fine, and they're both unrestricted. And we know Duchene's not going to sign there. So it's sort of a perfect storm. But as Mike would say, the Leafs are a team that would probably love to rent Tyler Myers just to get something solid on the right side. There's a lot of variables here with these two teams, and I think it's going to be really fascinating as we get closer into the season, because they have different areas of strengths. The Jets are probably a more well-rounded team, but you look at the Leafs, and it's the top 2 Canadian teams that most people see. Daring them to come down the middle. That's sort of where the Jets' flaw is that they can run 2 solid center lines, but after that, it gets a little dicey. And that's where I think they need to make that move for another kind of Stasny move.
Yeah, because right now they're at that point where most of their major talent is up. Like, then they have like the Sammy Nikus, and there's some other guys that are close. And I even watched goalie Jared Moe over the weekend. But that's where the depth part, you're right. They're going to have to go look for that right now, because they won't have any more.
Yeah, and they're gonna have the same issue as Toronto when it comes to a year or 2 down the road, where a guy like Adam Lowry making close to $3 million or Matthew Perreault making 4.1, with you having to pay Connor and Laine and Roslovic and all these, and signing Morris long term, or Trouba if that comes to fruition, you can't afford that middle ground. You probably have to have guys on entry level and then guys making $6 million or more, and they're going to have to make some decisions.
Yeah,
sure. We also had that was the presidential alert. You guys all get that? In America, like 78% of all cell phone owners were going to get a test of the presidential alert today.
I turned off all the notifications and still got it.
I know, it's crazy. I got it too.
I'm in Canada, so it doesn't go over the.
Pretty funny, but they said beautiful. It would be hundreds of millions of people, all 218 getting it. I heard about that, so that's pretty funny. All right, the couple really interesting stats. We talked about the Washington Capitals first rounders. This is also a team with a ton of first rounders. Do they have more or less than the Capitals, which you said was 11, I think, or 12? Was it 12? 12, yeah. 12. We'll say. I think it's 12.
13.
They have 13 first rounders. You're dead on, Peter. 13 first round draft picks of their 20. Again,
I would have said more just because that was the feeling I had for that.
Yeah. Again, 8 of their top 9 first round draft picks. But here's a homegrown, 12 of their 20 are homegrown, which is really a good number. I mean, for a team like this young, that shows that Sheveldayoff deserves a little more credit, I think, than he gets.
Yeah. There's a lot more, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good. Now, here's a good number without looking. Do they have more Canadians or more Americans on this team?
Americans.
Mike, you're wrong.
What?
They have 9 Canadians and 8 Americans on this team. So it's close, very close. But yeah, they indeed do have more Canadians than Americans.
Shifley, Little, Perreault, Lowry, Tanev. Is Andrew Kopp a U.S. or Canadian?
Yeah, Kopp's U.S. Hang on.
Yeah. Are you think I'm
wrong? Canadian.
Count me out.
Myers American. Lowry.
Brossaut are all Canadian.
Remember, Myers was born in the U.S. but plays for Canada.
Yeah, well,
I think Myers is American.
No, he's Canadian because he played.
No, he's Canadian, but he was born in Texas. That's
Canadian according to hockey.
Oh.
You're right. So that's like
American.
Half and half. We'll call it 8.5 to 8.5, right? Because they really are
right,
pretty much down the middle. But yeah, they
Yeah. Winnipeg got Tyler Myers, and the U.S. got Ted Cruz.
There you go.
Oh, we win.
Yeah, you guys win.
Shut up.
Is Brendan Lemieux American or Canadian?
I think he was born when his
in Denver.
dad was in
Denver.
Not listed in the top 20 on roster resource.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if
he got sent down.
I don't know if it did. I think he got sent down. Yes.
No, he's on the top 20. He's in 23.
Well, yeah, that's not in the top.
He's
20.
not on. Yeah, so he's not on the 20 opening man roster. He's just on the press box.
Right.
Yeah. Morrissey's Canadian. Sherratt, is he Canadian? I think so. Joe Morrow's Canadian, I think. So,
yeah, the defense is all Canadian or American.
Except for Kulikov.
Yeah, that's true. That's just true. He's actually not on the 20-man roster either, Kulikov.
Okay.
Is he? I mean, I don't know. What's going on with Kulikov? Is he not going to be starting this year with them? I mean, the roster resource has been doing pretty well the last couple. So, has something happened there, Peter, that we don't know about?
Sorry?
Did something happen with Kulikov? Is he going to be part of their?
Yeah, Kulikov's on. He played in the preseason. He will be playing, as far as I know.
Really strange. According to this number.
We have a minor trade to finish off the show here.
Okay.
The Canadians and the Wild. Canadians trade the Wild traded Gustav Olofsson, defenseman, for Will Bitton.
Oh, this is a good trade for the Wild. Wow.
Really?
Yeah, Will Bitton. If you remember, he was
in Flint.
He played for Flint, and that team was a disaster. And he still played like an all-star. And then he played in the World Junior team in a sort of strict defensive role and did really well with that. This is a guy that could be a very good NHLer, like a nice middle-of-the-road, middle six kind of guy. And so this is good. I know Olofsson's, got a little bit of gravitas as a defenseman, but I like Bitton better as a player, actually.
Wow, Will Bitton. All right. Interesting. Well, we'll talk more about that tomorrow when we get into our previews. So tonight, enjoy the games. We've got lots of. There's only 4 games on tap tonight. Mike will be at one of them up there in Toronto. That's going to be a great experience. Obviously, to see Tavares' first regular season game. Also, I love the NHL always opens with Montreal, Toronto. I don't care how good or bad either team is. It's great.
I mean, I think they didn't last year because Toronto opened in Winnipeg, and that was a great game. Although not from Peter's point of view. No. But no, I like the pomp and circumstance, the Highlanders coming out on the ice. But I'll tell you, it's just right now it's like. In listening to some of the talk here, there are some people who basically were saying the Leafs are going to win the cup, and there are other people who think the Leafs are going to get off to a real slow start. So it's the expectation game is wildly diverse here.
Message to Eck.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're still on the line or not, but did you see there was an EF2 tornado in northwestern PA last night?
No.
No way.
So, yeah, keep an eye out. I'm sure it's gone, but.
Yeah, I'm pretty far away from there, western Pennsylvania.
So here's a question going in. I know we got to wrap here in a sec, but if Mike, to your point, if the Leafs get off to what you just said, sorry, if the Leafs get off to a slow start, does the pressure switch to Dubas to get Nylander in because they need him in? Do you think there's any pressure that can be switched depending on how the Leafs start?
No, in fact, Brendan Shanahan just came out. There was some sort of ceremony for, the Canadian government recognizing the Maple Leafs for something, and Brendan Shanahan came out and made a statement basically saying, when I was in Detroit, all the star players took a little less, and that's what we expect of our leaders. Yeah. And it essentially said if they're not on board with that, that's fine, and if they're not on board with it, then they can play someplace else. Now, I mean, that may be a little bit of a shot. I'm not saying that means they're going to trade William Nylander, and I'm paraphrasing here on the fly. So I'd like to I'm looking for the accurate quote here before we log off here. But
I copied that into our chat from what Darren Dreger had tweeted.
I got to mention something. Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. Okay, here it is. I can speak. This is Brendan Shanahan. I can speak from personal experience that when I get together with some of my old teammates from the Cup years in Detroit, we talk about winning together and growing together, and that's what we remember looking back. At the end of the day, we all found a way to fit with each other so that we could keep adding to the group. And that's obviously what we're asking some of our young leaders to do. There's a lot of other voices, and understandably so. And like I said, it's not for everyone. And we're not for everyone, but we think that the players that we currently have, while it's not going to be easy, we have great confidence that they have bought into being part of this program and being part of the Toronto Maple Leafs and representing Toronto.
Right,
so it goes on.
So Eck, on Twitter, George Laraque had a post and said that, as many of you already know, I never liked fighting, but did what I had to do. Is it possible to be a gentleman while doing it? And Chris Dingman actually answered him and said he could confirm it. And he said he was coming back from a shoulder injury, and Laraque asked if he was okay to fight. And Dingman said he probably should have said no instead of yes.
Jeez. Wow.
Pretty good.
Really interesting.
Those were the days, my friends.
Yeah.
Love that. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Those were the days. I know. I've got some Montreal fans who are not happy about Will Bitton being traded right now.
Oh, I'm sure they're not.
I just got sent a video by a goal. I guess he scored that you probably saw, Mike, in the preseason, and because it happened in Toronto.
I probably did. Yep.
He scored like on a breakaway. I got it right here. I'll bring it up for you guys, and then we'll go from here.
Well, yeah, we got to get going now.
Yep. All right. Will Bitton real fast for you guys. Then we're out of here. Here we go. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. All right. Okay. Backward. Here's Will Bitton's goal against the Leafs.
Nice hustle goal.
Yeah, nice hustle goal. Good.
Got a good shot. Look, he picked the high top corner.
Yeah. Because Garrett Sparks went down on his knees.
There you go. All right. That's it for us. I've lost the show completely. Where is it? Sorry, I lost my window for the show. Where'd you go? Jesus. Hold on. Stop sharing. All right. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. Talk to you soon. I guess I can't find the freaking. Oh, here it is. Sorry. I apologize. We're gonna back. Yeah. Without the buzz, it's just hockey. Enjoy the first night of the season.